Hello my friends, Paul here in the RoJoBe Music Workshop, and welcome to the first of my new video series, Luthier Techniques. So this one is a bridge removal and replacement on an acoustic guitar. So before I go any further, let me just apologize for the audio. When I recorded these videos, unfortunately I had no audio, so I'm having to record a voiceover. Yeah, there you go. So you can see the bridge lifting. Having to record a voiceover using some software that I downloaded. And by the same token, I want to apologize for the watermark on the screen. The only way I could get that removed is to subscribe at a minimum of $10 a month. Well, no, thank you. So yeah, I'm having to record a voiceover on this series of videos. So there's 3 on this bridge removal and reattachment series, and there's also the restringing video of the same guitar, a standalone video, which will also have a recorded voiceover. So it's quite a cheap guitar. You know, it's nothing special, but it's fairly well made. It's quite well put together. But you know, just like with all acoustic guitars, even the higher end ones, you know, the bridges are never really attached properly. They don't use the correct glue, they don't clear enough of the finish to actually attach it to. So this one, like many others I've done, the bridge is lifting off, and you know, it is a very common problem. But you have to have a look and see if there's something else that may have caused the problem. I have noticed there's quite a significant belly bulge just below the bridge on this guitar. So, you know, that may tell me that there's something internally wrong. I mean, is the belly bulge a result of the bridge lifting, or is the bridge lifting a result of the belly bulge? This is something you have to try and ascertain, and it's not always easy if you don't see anything obvious. So I will be taking a look inside the guitar, but for now, let's just have a look how much of a belly bulge we've got there using a straight edge. It's quite a bit, quite significant. I've seen worse, I have to be honest, but this is not good. Now, when I take a look inside the guitar, I'm going to be looking for any missing braces or broken or detached or anything else that's going on inside the guitar. The bridge plate inside, sometimes that can be an issue. So I'll be taking a look inside the guitar to see if I can see any internal problems. If not, then you know, there's not going to be a great deal I can do about this belly bulge. You can sometimes apply pressure across the body using humidity as well and leave it overnight, but you know, this is a fairly cheap guitar. I'm not charging too much for the work that I'm doing, so there's no point, you know, trying to go the extra 10 miles. So this is what I'll be using to look inside the guitar. It's just a little extendable mirror with a light on. And some of the tools I'll be using to remove the bridge, my trusty iron, a couple of spatulas, if you like, for lifting the bridge off. But it's not going to take a lot of work to get this bridge off. You could probably see it's already half off. A couple of scalpels as well, because what I want to do before I remove the bridge is to score around it using a scalpel, so that when I remove it, I've got, you know, where I need to remove the finish. And also that will give me a, you know, perfect guideline of where to reattach it. Very important with acoustic guitars, because once the bridge is attached, you can't adjust the intonation much. You know, you can't move the bridge around. So, you know, I've got to sort of prepare myself to do this job. I've done quite a few of these before, quite a lot actually. So I know what I'm doing. I know how to do it. So let's start by taking a look inside the guitar before I remove the strings. So I'm looking at the internal braces, and I can see that they're kind of a diagonal pattern, but a little bit unusual. I would have suspected the the bass side to have the most support, but it seems to be more across the treble side. But what I'm looking for is any damage, anything missing or broken or loose. And at this stage, I can't see any problems. I will have a better look once the strings are off, but from what I can see right now, I don't see any missing braces or broken or loose, become detached. I'm just, a little bit intrigued about what seems to me to be quite unusual bracing. And the bridge plate underneath the bridge here, it's a decent enough size, width and length and thickness, and obviously it's plywood, which is not the best, but it doesn't seem to be detached in any way. I can't see any, loose corners or anything like that. It's not broken, it's not damaged. So from what I'm looking at right now, I don't see any internal problems. As I said, I will get a better look once the strings are off, but I don't think there's anything wrong inside. It's just, obviously the top, well, the whole guitar is made from plywood or laminate if you prefer, and it's just not all that strong. So what I am going to be doing when I replace the strings on this, I'm going to be putting electric guitar strings on, because they tend to be thinner, lighter gauge, and therefore not as much tension on the bridge. So, reducing the tension on this guitar is, certainly going to be the way forward. And electric guitar strings, they sound fine on an acoustic guitar. Not really going to notice the difference too much on a cheap, lower end, cheap guitar like this. So they will be absolutely fine. And actually the customer did request that, and I totally agreed with them that that's the right way to go with this guitar, to try and relieve some of the tension, by putting thinner gauge strings on there, and it will look, sound and feel just fine. As for this belly bulge, once I've reattached the bridge properly, it will reduce it a little bit, but not significantly. It's still going to be there. Wood tends to get a muscle memory sort of thing. So once it's, in a certain shape, you can sometimes, get the shape back. But with the braces still attached firmly, you're not going to get too much give really. So the belly bulge will still be there. It will be reduced somewhat, but it will still be there. So, yeah, I mean, I'll do what I can, but it's not going to be that much I can do, really. As I said, it will reduce, but it will still be there. So, the first thing I need to do, obviously, before I can do any work on this, is to remove the strings. Now, to save time, I'm not going to completely unwind them, from the tuners at the headstock and then remove them from the bottom end. I'm going to relieve the tension on the strings a bit and then just cut them. It saves time. So I'm just about to get my cutters now to cut the strings off. So by just loosening the strings off a bit, taking some of the tension off, I'm just going to cut straight through the middle of all of them. And it's just quicker to remove them, saves a bit of time. As I said, I'm not charging too much for this job, so I don't want to be spending too many hours on it. I always underquote, to be honest. I mean, people just won't pay the money in this country for this kind of work, so I stay within their budget. Just cutting through the strings now. I have loosened them all off, so there's not a sudden release of tension. And then I just, unwind them from the tuners at the headstock. You see how much quicker it is doing it this way. Otherwise, it would take 4 or 5 times as long, to unwind all the tuners, get the strings off the headstock end, and then remove them from the bridge. So it is just quicker just to cut them off. And obviously, not going to be reused. And I've got my little temporary bridge here, which is mounted on a block. And I'll put the bridge pins in the same place as they come out. You don't always need to, but I just think, sometimes holes will be slightly offset, and the pins will match them. So if you take them off and put them back in the same order. And yeah, I will have to bevel the end of those bridge pins before I put them back in. So yeah, just putting them back in the same order. It's not crucial, but I do think it's a good idea. As I said, sometimes there will be, you know, very slight differences between them, and this way you can ensure they're going to go back as well as they came out. So that's the strings removed from the bridge, and you know, as I said, before I detach the bridge, I need to score around it with the scalpel. You know, so that I know exactly what finish to remove when I remove the bridge. So one good thing about this guitar, despite it being fairly cheap, the saddle does fit nice and snug, nice and tightly. It's, you know, the bridge, the saddle slot has been cut in the bridge perfectly, and it fits in there really nice, really tight. There's no movement backwards or forwards or side to side. And that's always a good thing. You don't always see that on the cheaper guitars. Sometimes you don't see it on the more expensive guitars. So I just used my cutters to gently pull the saddle out. I'm not, you know, trying to cut through it, just grabbing it with the cutters, give it a gentle wiggle, and that's usually enough. There you go, out it pops, and you know, yeah, so I bend it to see if it's plastic or bone, and because it does bend a little bit, I know it's plastic. It's a fairly good quality. I always prefer to use bone nuts and saddles, but it's okay. It's the one that came with the guitar, so we know it's going to fit properly. Right, so just brushing off a bit of the dust around it in preparation for scoring around with my scalpel. So it's very important to do this part very carefully so that you don't, you know, slip and mark any of the other finish that you don't want to remove. So you just very gently score around it, you know, with the scalpel. So what you want to do is to cut through the finish but not into the wood. Now, you know, the finish on guitars, regardless of how much finish is on there, it's going to be microns thick. So, you know, you don't need to apply a lot of pressure. I tend to make 2 passes, so I'll just do the first pass very lightly so that I've got a score line. And yeah, it's just seeing there's a little bit of finish chipped away at the edge there. I'll have to repair that later. It's not too bad. And it happens when a bridge comes away, sometimes it will chip a little bit of the finish, but being a black finish, it's quite easy to repair. So yeah, as I said, I do a first pass with the scalpel very, very lightly, just to score a line. And as I said, being very, very careful not to deviate from the contour of the bridge so as not to mark the finish anywhere that I don't want it to be marked. So it pays to take your time over this bit. As I said, the first pass is very light, just to score a line all the way around. And what I later discover on this guitar is that the finish is really thin. Thinner than most that I've seen before. And again, it is a cheap guitar, so I wasn't expecting it to be, you know, ultra thick finish. So yeah, I mean, you know, you as I said, you want to score and just lightly cut through the finish itself, but not cut into the wood. That's the last thing you want to do, because if you start removing layers of wood, then it becomes very weak. And, you know, bearing in mind that the top of the guitar does vary a bit, but they tend to be round about 3 millimeters thick, and with solid wood, obviously it's a little bit stronger, but with laminate or plywood, you know, it's a series of layers. So if you're not careful, you can actually cut through and remove a layer of the wood. Now it's still obviously very, very thin, but you really don't want to do that. You don't want to lose any thickness on the top of the guitar at all, especially where the bridge is attached, because it's, you know, there's a lot of tension on there. So yeah, so I've made the first pass around the bridge with the scalpel, I'm happy with the line. I haven't gone over anywhere. So now I go again and just apply a little bit more pressure just to actually cut through the finish itself. And it doesn't take much, and especially with this guitar, as I said, with very, very thin finish, doesn't take much at all to, to cut through that. But, as I said, this stage is very important prior to removing the bridge, so that you have a witness line of exactly where the bridge goes, albeit, you would line it up with the bridge pins anyway. And also, it shows me exactly where I need to remove the finish prior to re-gluing this bridge, because obviously, yeah, it slipped a bit, but luckily nothing happened. Just worried me a little bit. I've forgotten what I was saying now. Anyway, so I've scored around there now. I'm happy with the line that I've made in the finish. Just checking for time, and we're good. So time to plug in the iron and start heating up the bridge, ready for removal. Now you can get proper bridge removal heating tools, but they can be quite expensive. You can make them, but you still need to have all the proper parts to make them, and it can still work out quite expensive. Well, this iron literally cost me a couple of quid. It's a very, very cheap iron, but it gets hot, and that's really all you need, so long as you're careful not to apply it to the finish anywhere. I turn it up to the maximum because it's not a all singing, all dancing iron, and it's not a steam iron. It's just a dry iron, which I prefer to use on this. So these, I've got quite a few of these spatulas. Some of them are a bit wider, some a bit narrower, longer, shorter, thinner. There's a few different shapes. I try to use as small a one as possible for any given job. And you can see it's flexible, which is what you want, but still quite strong. So obviously the shorter one will have less flex. And I don't need to get too far under the bridge because it's already half off anyway. So I'm quite happy to go with the smaller of my spatulas. And you can see I've got the iron on the bridge, heating that up, and I put the tool underneath the iron as well, so that also heats up. Normally I would put some kind of protection on the top of the guitar around the bridge, cloth or paper or card or something like that, to prevent any marking of the finish. But because I know this bridge is going to come off fairly quickly and easily, I don't go too mad with that, because I know that it's not really going to cause any damage, because you will see that this bridge is not the most difficult removal job. And as I said, I've done lots and lots of these, and the difficulty of removing the bridge varies a lot. It depends on how much it's already detached, what kind of instrument it is, how it was built in the first place. There's all sorts of variables that come into it. Some of them literally take seconds, some of them I battle with for 45 minutes or an hour. It depends. Every job is different. So everything seems to be nicely heated up now, so I'm just going to very gently and carefully ease the tool under the bridge. I'm not applying any force, or very, very minimal force, and just wiggle it backwards and forwards. The heat softens the glue, and then the blade or tool kind of cuts through it, and you can see it's going through quite nicely, going in from one end and then from the other end, and you can see how far the tool's going in already. There's not much holding that bridge on, and before you know it, pop, she's off. So yeah, that is perhaps one of the easiest removals I've ever done. Really came off quickly and easily. You can see there's a little bit of a score mark on the finish, but it's surface, and it cleans up quite nicely later on, not a problem. And there's no tear out on the wood of the guitar itself, which is great. Usually you'll see some tear out, but this has come away nice and cleanly. which is good, but it shows that it wasn't glued that well to begin with. And you can see the score line on the finish where I scored around the bridge. Quite easy to see on the black finish. And if you look at the back of the bridge as well, there's no wood tear out there. There is a strip, but it's nice and clean, so I'll use that as a guide to reattach the bridge afterwards. So yeah, there is a strip of wood torn out on there, but it's very, very clean. And that's absolutely fine, because once it's glued up together, it'll be as strong, well, it will be stronger than factory. So it's really come off cleanly, but you can also see the back of the bridge. There's a lot of the black finish on the bridge itself, which will obviously have to be cleaned off before reattaching. But yeah, as I said, that's one of the easiest bridge removals I've done, and I've done quite a lot. So that's going to be a nice easy job to reattach that. I just need to make sure I get good glue coverage when it comes to reattaching the bridge. So when I'm removing the finish, I will use a number of different tools. Sometimes, the scalpel or a blade. In this case, as you can see, I've got a chisel in my hand, quite a narrow chisel, because I don't want to, have the risk. Yeah, so there you can see the black finish on the bridge itself. That'll all have to be removed, and that shows you that the glue was not very good. So my chisel's nice and sharp, so I just very, very gently and carefully pick away at the finish from the outside in, which reduces the risk of chipping finish past the boundary of the bridge. So I start from the outer edge and work inwards, just very, very, very gently chip the finish away, and it's coming away really easily on this guitar. It's very, very thin. It's not that well attached, to be honest, so it's coming off really easily and cleanly, which is nice, because sometimes this part of the job can take a while, and it can be tricky. Occasionally you will get it, sometimes it will split or chip outside the bridge boundary edge, which is a absolute pain, but this one is going really, really smoothly, ever so easy, because it's not particularly good finish, and it's not, I don't think the guitar was actually prepared that well prior to the finish being applied. So it's all in my favor, really. And what's happening there is a large piece is just peeling away in one piece, and that makes my life easy. So yeah, peeling the finish away on here was really, really easy. And there's very little preparation needed for this, for reattachment, once the finish is removed. A little bit of light sanding, but yeah, you can see it's coming off in nice long strips there. So this part of the job can take quite a long time, depending on what you find underneath the bridge. But this one is really quick and simple, so that's good, because I want to get this thing turned around and back to the customer as soon as possible, because, as I said, I'm not charging them very much, and I don't want the job to run on for hours and hours. So this is getting towards the end of the video now. You can see what's happening here. I end up finishing that off camera, and doing a little bit of light preparation, ready for the reattachment of the bridge. So that will be in part 2. But yeah, up until now, this job has gone really smoothly. I'm really happy with how it's going, how easy it is, because they can be difficult jobs to do, but this one's going to be done in no time. And yeah, so the bridge won't need a lot of preparation for reattachment, and yeah, it's turning out to be a nice, easy job. If you have any questions or comments, please put them down in the comments below. Doing the voiceover is not as good as the actual proper audio, so all that's going to be coming in part 2. In the meantime, please look after look after yourselves, look after each other, and we will see you soon. Peace out.